is getting off of this island, and it's not gonna be them. It's time to start cleaning up my messes.
I don't give a shit if you have a problem with it. We're doing another Sea of Thieves episode of the Kongversation. Isn't that right, Jeff?
That's right, Hyle.
Yes.
Just because.
Just because we hate you. We hate you. I do see. I was like, okay, well, let's do another Sea of Thieves episode because we have a lot of Sea of Thieves content we need to talk about that we have not talked about. And people are like, why don't you do an episode about Banjo 3? Like, I get the same shit Rare gets whenever they try to promote something. Well, why aren't you doing Banjo 3? Well, it doesn't exist, so why am I doing an episode about it? I'm not going to do an episode about Banjo 3. We're talking about Forsaken Shores, and you're going to like it, young man or lady. I don't care if this is the broccoli of your Donkey Kong audio program podcast. You're going to chew it. You're going to become healthy because of it. And then maybe you'll get your dessert with I don't know, a Smash episode or Banjo 3 Speculation Center. We'll do that at some point. But for now, you've got to finish your dinner.
Plus, if it was a Banjo episode, you wouldn't get to listen to me.
Well, you've been on a Banjo episode.
Maybe.
Maybe.
That seems like a Cameron episode or you know. I don't get invited to Banjo episodes. That's above my pay grade.
I seem to recall you were the one on the Banjo-Kazooie 20th anniversary episode this past summer.
You know, the fact that you remember and I don't sounds about right, so I believe you.
Right, well.
The math checks out.
This is going to be a great episode then, because I was going to rely on your memory for a lot of this.
Okay, I can remember Sea of Thieves content. If that's what. So we're good there. We've got that covered.
Yes, well. We are talking about Forsaken Shores on this episode, but first let's get to some due diligence. Check out DK Vine. If you listen to the Kongversation, you have no excuse not to ever type in dkvine.com into the web address bar and go to the website. It's about Donkey Kong. It's about the Rare shared universe, Platonic. It's about stuff. Go there. We're also on Facebook. We're also on Twitter. We're also on YouTube at dkvine.com/whatever those things are. Takes you right to them. And if you like what we do, consider supporting us on Patreon. We have lots of rewards. We got stickers for just $1 a month. You get stickers. Stickers, Jeff. You get What a great holiday gift that would be for your loved ones. If you don't really care about stickers, but you know somebody who would love a sticker of this representation of what could conceivably be TT the stopwatch, well then there you go. Holiday shopping done. Support us on Patreon. dkvine.com/Patreon. Also, Jeff, you are running Golden Sands blog post, and that is at medium.com/golden-sands-blog post. And
very clever pun.
It is, and it's more of a clever pun than DK Vine, which isn't really a pun. It's more just, hey, Donkey Kong Vine, because he swings on a vine, but also you're like in the grapevine. You heard it through the vine, DK Vine. But Golden Sands blog post, it's actually just a terrific resource. If you're like me and you keep up with this stuff, but you really can't keep up with everything Rare says about Sea of Thieves, be it on social media, on YouTube videos, on streams, because they're doing a lot of content out of Twycross, and it's hard to really catch it all, especially when you're living a go-go lifestyle like I do. So what Jeff does is he corrals all of it, puts it up on his blog. If you need to get up to date on that week's news and other things, resources for events, strategy guides, what have you, Golden Sands blog post is your source.
It's for all of the Sea of Thieves fans that live in that go-go lifestyle.
Yeah, I mean,
it's for the go-goers. Only thing we don't have is we don't have stickers. No, so there's that. You're not going to get any stickers from us. But if you get the DK Vine stickers, I've heard that those are the scratch and sniff kind. Is that right?
You could try that. I don't think any sense.
I'm a nosmic. I can't smell anything. So to me, all stickers scratch and sniff the same.
That's a good point. That is true. I'll say this much. I can't speak to any scents that might be emanating from our stickers. All I'll say is they were not approved beforehand by us. So I'm washing my hands of any foul smells that may be coming from them. That's on the fine people at the U.S. Postal Service who took them part of the way to your home. So, yeah. But Jeff, so I'm using you as a resource on this episode, you of the Golden Sands blog post, to help me talk about the Forsaken Shores event. Now, Forsaken Shores, it launched on September 27th, I believe. It was going to launch on Talk Like a Pirate Day, and then they went, nope, not ready yet. Nope, we're going to delay it a week. And that was fine because I wasn't ready for it. When it Talk Like a Pirate Day rolled around, and what we did, Jeff, is we talk like pirates, and
this one I do remember.
Right,
I do remember this one. Yeah.
So, well, it was actually our ancestors who were talking like pirates. Anyway, but yeah, wasn't ready for it when it was supposed to come out. So I was all for a delay. It didn't really matter. And then they just basically kept it going until Halloween. So they have these time windows of when they plan to get these out, but also these time windows of when they plan to cut off the event. But with both this and Curse Sales, it seems like they just said, we'll just keep it going a little bit longer, which is good because go lifestyle, if you don't have time to actually play it, then it's nice that they give you some extra days on top of everything.
Yeah, it's really behind the scenes. They've shifted their dev cycle over the past couple events to basically accommodate the fact that past updates that they've pushed out have introduced bugs to the world.
Mm-hmm.
And they throughout the whole summer, it was constantly a battle of introduce a patch that fixes some things but then breaks new things. So rather than putting out buggy content, they've kind of slowed the cycle down a little bit, and they're getting more lead time for their Pioneer program, which is their beta testers. More lead time for the Pioneer program to test things before it goes live, make it proper adjustments and balance tweaks and bug fixes before it goes live. So they've just started to hit their stride where I think they are putting out nearly bug-free patches that are fixing a lot of older bugs, but also adding new content relatively frequently. So that's kind of where they're at with the longer events are lasting a little longer. They're a little bit looser with dates, release dates, and end dates, which has its drawbacks and setbacks. But that's the reason behind that. It's for quality of product, basically.
Yeah, and the last time they released a game full of bugs, I believe it was Jet Force Gemini, and that kind of performed under expectations at the time. So it's best that they, work them out beforehand. Because they're ants in Jet Force.
Oh, I get it.
No. Yeah, I thought maybe you didn't, so I felt like I had to go back and explain that. Because
No. I got it.
Because you might be thinking, wait, what was wrong with Jet Force Gemini? I don't really remember any big problems with that game. Like, no.
What did having a lot of the sister of one of your parents in the game have to do with the game being buggy?
Oh, see, that's why I like to pronounce it.
The joke there was that they're ants.
No, I got it.
Ant is like an uncle, only big ant.
Well, that's why you want to pronounce it as. That's why you want to pronounce it as aunt. To avoid that. Otherwise, I'm going to be wondering why it was Ant-Man and the Wasp, but not Ant-Man and Uncle Woman, because that would make more sense to me.
Yeah. I think that little girls should have a character like Uncle Woman to look up to.
Uncle Woman? Really?
Sometimes girls have hair on their body or whatever, and they want to have a character that in media that shows them that you don't have to look perfectly feminine and you can still be a hero. even if you look like somebody's uncle.
It's a shame Stan Lee passed away this week, because I really feel like he would have listened to this, and that would have been his last great contribution to the world of superheroes, was creating Uncle Woman for us. And that's an opportunity
her
now lost.
Her catchphrase could be she could make her enemies say uncle. Like hold their arm back, like say uncle. And it's like, ow, ow, ow.
No, I got
say
it.
Uncle.
No, I got it.
And then
no. I understand. So
where did we go? Okay, so Forsaken Shores.
Yeah,
we're back.
So,
we made it back so effortlessly.
I know that was such a smooth segue too. It was like we just buttered up the floor and just slid across it. This was the biggest update. Arguably the biggest update yet in Sea of Thieves. Probably not arguably. It was, as far as like sheer amount of stuff it added to the game, yeah, the biggest update yet. Now, we're going to be talking on two sides about Forsaken Shores. We're going to be talking about what it actually added to the game, and we're going to be talking about the event itself, which in this case is a little bit more nebulous than the past two events, Hungering Deep and Cursed Sails, which we both discussed on the Kongversation this year. The Hungering Deep and Cursed Sails, they both had this kind of detective quest where you had to go from island to island, uncovering a mystery, sort of, that the storyline of the event centers around. But those both led up to specific battles on isolated parts of the map of the world, and Forsaken Shores went a decidedly different route. So just to recap really quick, Hungering Deep, what that was, it was the first event back in the spring. It led up to the fight with the Hungering One, which was a megalodon that the ancient peoples of the Sea of Thieves feared or worshipped or learned to summon or something like that. So following the detective quest, and then following the fight with the Hungering One, smaller megalodons then rose up throughout the game world after the event was over, and it just created a new emergent persistent threat in the game world, similar to the Kraken attacks that happened as well. Cursed Sails was essentially kind of like a Skelly apocalypse. Instead of a zombie apocalypse, it was kind of like the Skellies, which are the main enemy race, or the enemy race in the game, but they mobilized and created galleons. And the story was the weapons maker Wanda, I believe originally from Golden Sands Outpost. Yes.
That's right.
Wanda, she discovered Captain Flameheart's cursed cannon and the cannonballs therein, and then that's had the effect of turning her into a Skelly, and she lost her mind and waged war on the outpost of the Sea of Thieves. And there were 3 battles each week for a total of 3 weeks. The event actually went for 4 weeks, but there 3 weeks was the plan, and so there were 3 sets of battles on the outskirts of the game world. And following that, then galleon battles became a thing in the game world as well, kind of sitting side by side with the skeleton forts. So
the way to look at those are the terminology that MMOs use are a raid. A raid, yes. Battle, would be like something on the shared server that everyone knows is going on and everyone can join in on or fight over. And that would be like a skeleton fort, which was launched with the game, and now the skeleton naval ship battles. So that was Cursed Sails' main contribution, was a new type of raid, naval battles, among many other smaller features that were not the main selling point.
Yeah, so the events, these stories were bigger, I think, in the first 2 events, but the contributions to the game world, while still significant, were a bit smaller in the long run, where Forsaken Shores kind of flips it around, because instead of having a big battle as the centerpiece of the event, all it really did was introduce the fourth region of the Sea of Thieves, which is called the Devil's Roar, a volcanic island chain that's east. I can't do directions. East of the Ancient Isles and southeast of the Wilds. I believe the northeast region is still under the Devil's Shroud. So you look at the map now, and you've got this extension on the lower right-hand corner of the map, but above it, it's still the Devil's Shroud, where you cannot penetrate. More on that in a bit. And so commendations in the first couple of weeks were limited to visiting each island. You basically had to just island hop from island to island, set foot on the island for it to count, and doing Gold Hoarder and Order of Souls voyages in the Devil's Roar region. The Merchants Alliance didn't show up for the first couple of weeks in the event for reasons we'll get into in a bit. And then there was also another, what I call detective quest. I'm not sure what the actual terminology is for this. Jeff, you would probably know more than I would.
I don't know if there's anything official. I guess you would call it the story component of the update. There's every new update has brought it with it some degree of story that usually plays out by you. You pick up a little bit of the story, it points you in the direction to go somewhere else. You do that, and you find out more of the story along the way. So yeah, I think detective quest is a fair term for that.
We could call it Cumberbatching. When you walk around like Benedict Cumberbatch in the Sherlock thing.
Like the actor.
Like the actor.
I thought you were just making up a new gross word.
No,
but we already have one. We already have a Cumberbatch.
Right. No. I was referencing the actor, the beloved actor Benedict.
We could call it Robert Downey Jr.ing, because he also played Sherlock.
Yeah, sure. We could call it Rathboning.
Will Ferrell.
Rathboning, because Rathbone is a pirate in Chris Alcock's novel, so we could call it Rathboning. But then we're as gross as your Twitter handle, so we should probably not. So anyway, the detective aspect, the Cumberbatching of Forsaken Shores was centered around this crew that called itself the Forsaken Alliance. And they were a bunch of pirates who banded together, and they were dedicated to uncovering the lands inside the realm of the Sea of Thieves, but in the realm, but still obscured by the Devil's Shroud, which is the mysterious lethal fog that circles the Sea of Thieves. And the Devil's Shroud, Jeff, is one of my favorite subjects when talking about Sea of Thieves and the lore of Sea of Thieves. I know I've talked about it a bit before on the show, but I feel like I need to just lay it out a little bit more for people. So the Devil's Shroud, for those who don't know, is a major component of the legend, the story of Sea of Thieves. It actually factors in heavily in both Chris Alcock's novel, which we'll be discussing in a few weeks here on the show, the comic series, which we'll be discussing in a few weeks here on the show, and the Tales from the Sea of Thieves in-universe journal, which Cameron and I discussed several months ago. So the Devil's Shroud acts as an in-game explanation for why you can't sail beyond the borders of the open game world. Because if you got open ocean, why can't you just sail past it? So Rare could have done all sorts of things like have wind like pick up, or just have invisible walls like it was the N64. But they came up with this notion that there's a fog or effect around the Sea of Thieves that basically destroys your ship should you just blindly sail through it. Getting into the actual in-universe rationale behind it, The Sea of Thieves itself, it's kind of a sub-realm of Earth, and it's located inside this Bermuda Triangle-esque effect, which is the Devil's Shroud. And nobody knows how large the realm of the Sea of Thieves actually is within the Shroud, but the Shroud does cover an untold amount of it. So what we can sail in the game is just what the Shroud isn't coding at the time. So that basically gives Rare the leeway then that whenever it's time to expand the game world, they can say the Shroud has receded. And that's pretty much what Forsaken Shores was centered around. The Shroud has receded, and now we've got this fourth region of the game, the Devil's Roar.
Right.
Yeah.
And one thing I really like about the lore that the Forsaken Shores update brought into the game is it introduced this concept that the Sea of Thieves is bigger than what we can see, and there are regions and islands that are covered by the Shroud, and those regions are called Forsaken Shores.
Yes.
Hence the name of the update. And the Forsaken Shores Alliance, this crew of pirates, they want to explore all these regions that are within the Shroud because they have an enchanted figurehead on their ship, which gives them the ability to survive in the Shroud without being sunk by the forces of the Shroud. So they can sail into the Shroud. The ship that they had actually is called the Shroud Breaker.
Right.
It was one of the ships in this alliance. So that was a really cool bit of story to see. And the way the story is uncovered in the game is not force-fed to the player. It's very much you get out of it what you feel like if you choose to talk to the proper NPCs and kind of get the exposition that the NPCs in the world give to you. You can discover more about the story that way. It was a very kind of hands-off sort of quest compared to the past ones that they told you go to this place, and then a UI prompt would appear on the screen and tell you like, hey, you had to go to this place now. It was much more hands-off, much more freewheeling sort of. If you want to talk to the NPCs and then kind of go where you want based on the clues they gave you, you're welcome to do that, or you can just ignore it entirely.
Right. And we all have our preferences to which kind of method we prefer, but I do like that Rare has been changing it up with these events. It's not just the same thing kind of reskinned each and every time. They actually go about things in a different way. And of course, that part of that is that they have different teams doing these. So it's not the people who did the Hungering Deep aren't the same people who did Cursed Sails, and they're not the same people who did the Forsaken Shores. I do have a problem with the terminology because I keep tripping up. So the event is called Forsaken Shores, and then there's the Forsaken Shores Alliance, but the new region is called the Devil's Roar, and it's about the Devil's Shroud receding. So I keep stumbling over what to call what because they're similar. They're all similar. And my mind is trying to do laps, trying to think back. Oh, no, wait, the event isn't called Devil's Roar. It's called Forsaken Shores. But then I start talking about the Devil's Roar, but I start saying Devil's Shroud. And yeah. But yeah, as you...
that gets into you had like the Sunken Curse, followed by the Cursed Sails, followed by the Cursed Cruise. Like that was a kind of a tricky string of change. But anyway, yeah. What's really great is the Forsaken Shores is the first major event since they've kind of changed their way of thinking about these events. And what I mean by that is everything from now on is forward compatible. You can go, even if you weren't there for the Forsaken Shores event, you can earn all of the doubloons from that event. All of the story pieces of that event that were there are still there to find. Whereas like the campaign of the Hungering Deep, the detective quests, or the detective quest of Cursed Sails, those are gone now. But Forsaken Shores is perfectly preserved. You can go still experience it. The only thing that you're missing out on was a set of limited time cosmetic items that were available for that time period. But everything gameplay wise and everything story wise is still in the game.
Yeah, and honestly, that is a preferable way to do it. The only issue that you have with it, which we'll get into when we just compare and contrast the 3 events thus far, is that there is a lack of urgency that was there before. And so it's a give and take, because as much as I like having those things preserved for new players so they can come in and kind of experience it for themselves, there was kind of this lack of driving force in the narrative this time around. Whereas, like the last event, Cursed Sails, Skellies are going to massacre the Sea of Thieves unless you stop them. Or there's this crazy ancient beast hiding in the waters. Let's go summon it and see what happens. I like those. Those felt more, I guess, special because they were a limited time thing. So,
there's definitely pros and cons to each way.
Yeah.
Yeah. What we should make clear, though, is that so the story component of these events is actually coming in terms of the development. It comes second to the gameplay makeup of what they're introducing in this update. So clearly, they when they're creating an update, they're thinking about what types of features can we add to the game. How are we going to make it like a complete package of different types of features that touch on a few different impacts, the things that ways they impact the game. And once they've got that complete package of features, then they think, okay, now how can we kind of craft a story to go along with it?
Yeah.
So this event added the new region of the world, but it did not add any new specific AI boss battle threat type dangers or things to fight. And so it kind of makes sense that the story is obviously less action based and less about fighting a boss, fighting a battle, but more about exploration, more about sort of open-ended, free, go find the story on your own. And it is about exploring all the new islands that they've given to us without any sort of singular path to take. So I think that, it's a very different way to do it, but it was kind of necessitated by the types of gameplay they were showcasing in this new update, which was mainly just new islands.
Sure. Yeah. And honestly, I'm kind of surprised that I miss the story so much. And yeah, I'm a story guy, so maybe it's not that surprising, but when the game was still, closed, it was, the beta or the technical alpha, my biggest thing is I just wanted to explore. But I think the Hungering Deep was such a rewarding experience for me. It was I went on about it at the time, but I honestly felt like it was the most fun I've had playing a video game in years. That I just love the Hungering Deep, and despite all the problems it had, like after the first few days, you would get griefers just trying to ruin people still trying to do the event, which they really tried to amend with Cursed Sails, but I guess I'm just comparing it to that event, that limited time story driven event that I don't know. It was such a weirdly frustrating but ultimately beautiful experience for me. So that isn't to say though I didn't have fun with Forsaken Shores. I just and
something else we should point out is we've mentioned Forsaken Shores is so much bigger than past updates. But the reasoning behind that, and it's not to sort of knock on the Hungering Deep team. It came down to all 3 of these first major updates, the Hungering Deep, the Cursed Sails, and the Forsaken Shores, all began development at the same time, shortly after launch of the game. So that just means that once Hungering Deep released, the Cursed Sales team was still going. They had that much longer of a lead time. So they had that extra 8 weeks or whatever it was, 6 weeks, 7 weeks, whatever. And then they released their update. And when that released, Forsaken Shores team was still developing. And they had been developing just as long. And then they add another 6, 7, 8, whatever weeks onto that. And then Forsaken Shores comes out. So the reason it is the biggest update was just that longer lead time.
Yeah.
And now we'll get into that a little later when we talk about what's coming later in future updates. But they've gotten into a groove now where everybody has that big lead time that Forsaken Shores was able to benefit from.
Right. And, you know, like I'm kind of knocking the so-called event, but what this update did add, I think is tremendously more significant than anything Hungering Deep added. So it is just kind of this, well, as an event, it might have lacked in comparison, but for what it actually adds to the game, long-term value, it is so much more. So
Certainly.
Yeah. I want to talk a little bit more really quick, Jeff, because I have to do it. About the lore of the Forsaken Alliance and the figurehead, the Shroudbreaker figurehead, or what I know that was their ship name, but you know what I mean. So this was, it glowed yellowish orange, right? And actually, that is the effect that all of the cosmetics that you get. Either the limited time ones you got from Duke during the Forsaken Shores event, or the ones you can buy if you get, I believe, the Devil's Cartographer title by visiting all the islands, and then you can buy it at the outpost, in the clothing shops and what have you. But all of the cosmetics, clothing and weaponry together, and everything else that you can get in the Devil's Roar, they're all kind of patterned after this figurehead, this Shroudbreaker figurehead. They all kind of glow this color, and so I think the implication is that all of these items have a bit of the material, the element that the Shroudbreaker had, but the Shroudbreaker had so much more of it that it was actually able to pierce the Devil's Shroud. So I came up with a theory, Jeff. I was an insanely long Twitter thread the other week about what this material was. And I eventually hypothesized that it was the same element that comprises Jiggies in Banjo-Kazooie. Because what are Jiggies but these items that unlock these worlds in Banjo-Kazooie and Banjo-Kazooie Grunny's Revenge? These worlds are in this unspecified realm, separate from Spiral Mountain or the Isle o' Hags, and we never really know where they take place. And my theory was, what if it's the same dimensional pocket that the Sea of Thieves takes place? Just I'm not going to read the whole Twitter thread in this podcast, but check it out on Twitter. But
basically, you know, boiling down to the Shroudbreaker figurehead had the ability to pierce through the shroud and reveal worlds that were hidden in a pocket dimension, and that's what Jiggies do. So there's your connection.
So
that's what Jiggies do.
I mean, we know. Look, what are the connections here? We know that the Salty Hippo was a ship that appeared in the Tales from the Sea of Thieves journal. Could Treasure Trove... we know Treasure Trove Cove is possibly somewhere within the Sea of Thieves itself, just obscured by the Shroud at the moment, because it does appear on the opening title sequence. So I'm just saying there might be a connection there. So, but I address all of that in the Twitter thread. So
anyone who is asking us, why are you guys talking about Sea of Thieves? It's not even Donkey Kong Universe. Well, it's not Donkey Kong Universe, but clearly it is tied heavily to a number of Rare's other properties, especially including and especially the Banjo-Kazooie series. Like you said, Salty Hippo references in the Tales from the Sea of Thieves book. Treasure Trove Cove is referenced in the game. Captain Black Eye is referenced in the game. And that's to say nothing of like the cosmetic items and graffiti arts on caves, cave paintings, etc. So there's a connection, is all I'm trying to say. There's a connection. So
there's a connection.
We'll see. And that connection could become bigger in the future.
Yes. It's basically just a waiting game at this point, especially now that Rare's kind of gone back on what they were initially promoting, and the game is filthy with NPCs now. So it's only a matter of time, people. That's all. It's only a matter of time before this is officially, by our metrics, part of the shared universe that we call the Donkey Kong universe. So we would be at a fault if we weren't discussing it right now, because we would be missing out on all these early events that have formed the lore of the game. So this is all basically doing our homework before the pop quiz is called and Captain Black Eye or somebody shows up in the actual physical game. So you're welcome. We're just being very good students. That's all we're doing. So anyway, yeah. So I so love that theory that this element is actually the same element that comprises Jiggy's. You could call it magic or whatever, or just some sort of powerful like radioactive element that's able to pierce the shroud. That I actually incorporated it into a little bit of my pirate's attire, Cousin Russell's attire. So, I've been rocking the Black Dog jacket, which shares the same pattern as all the obsidian items that you can get through things like the Chips Ahoy promotion or like the mixer mix pots. If you watch the mixer streams, you can occasionally get an exclusive item. So I've been rocking that since the game came out, but I finally incorporated one of the I don't even what are the precise name of the cosmetics here?
They're called the Forsaken Ashes.
Forsaken Ashes
cosmetic set.
So I got I added the Forsaken Ashes belt, and because when I was playing in one of the sessions for Forsaken Shores, there was a solar eclipse. And it was the first time I've seen a solar eclipse in a game, but apparently it can happen every now and then. Like the moon just goes over the sun. Anyway, so I looked at it, and I looked at it, and so now I have to have an eye patch because it burned out my retina. So I'm using a Forsaken Ashes eye patch. Kind of clashes, honestly. It doesn't really pull it together, so I'm gonna have to kind of tweak the wardrobe as I go along. But
well, my pirate, of course, is currently rocking the Kraken-themed stretchy pants.
Yeah.
Yoga pants, whatever you want to call them.
They look very comfortable, by the way.
They look great. I want to keep my pirate comfy on the seas. So he's barefoot. He's running around in stretchy pants with his long locks of beard. And he's looking pretty salty, ready to go.
Yeah, I honestly feel bad for my pirate because he's been wearing this long black, essentially like almost a trench coat since the game came out on March 20th.
Yeah, you're in the Matrix. You're in the world of you're Morpheus or something in the world of the Matrix, which doesn't really work when you're in a tropical island paradise.
No, yeah, the Matrix would have been a much shorter movie had they been rocking all those black leather clothes in the fucking Caribbean. They would have just like passed out before they even got to the whole shooty up lobby scene. So, anyway, so back to the actual event. You could also earn commendations by doing the Cumberbatching, by investigating what exactly happened to the Forsaken Alliance. So there's a bit of a mystery here. There was a character added to the game called Stitcher Jim, and I don't know why he's called Stitcher Jim. By the way, Jeff, you can listen to the conversation on Stitcher. I don't know if you knew that.
Can you listen to it on Jim? Can you listen to it at the gym?
You can listen to it at the gym.
You can listen to it at the gym on Stitcher. Boom. There you go.
I look, body by the Kongversation. I don't think I've had anybody come up to me and say, I got this wicked gym bod because I listened to your Donkey Kong and Rare related podcast every episode. I've got the abs, I've got the cum gutters. Come Gutters, look it up. I've got this sweet.
He was my favorite Sherlock.
Benedict Cumgutters, yeah. So, yeah, I don't know. But yeah, you can listen to it in the gym, while you're on gym, on Stitcher, whatever you want to do. So
snap into a Stitcher gym.
Right. Stitcher Jim, he was the one in the trailer for Forsaken Shores. He was singing the song about the I don't know. He was basically in the trailer. It's like, oh, who is this sad fuck? And wow, like this is a bit of a downer. Why is he being so sad? Stop being sad. I want to play this update, and this guy saying I'll be sad if I play it. Fuck you, Stitcher Jim. But it turns out Stitcher Jim, he's a survivor of the Forsaken Alliance, and he's hanging out on Liar's Backbone, which is not in a Devil's Roar. It's a pre-existing island in the game, or was a pre-existing island in the game.
It is the island closest to the Devil's Roar, east. Farthest east before you reach the Devil's Roar. So it is the last island you would see if you were sailing from the main side of the map to the Devil's Roar.
Or as I would call it, west. Yeah. Liar's Backbone. So I like that. Yeah, they had him like basically, well, not wash up because he had a rowboat, but he got there, and you can go talk to him, and he's like, "Hey, here's our deal. I'm the last survivor. Basically, our captain, Captain Morrow, betrayed us, and I made it out. And boo hoo 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 hoo." But then and he's like looking at the Devil's Roar with his telescope because the shroud is receded, and he's like, "Oh shit!" But why is he so apprehensive about this? Is it just bad memories, or is it something else? So then there is Captain Morrow, who is still in the Devil's Roar on the only outpost of the Devil's Roar, Morrow's Peak. So you visit her, and she was like, "Wait a second, no, it wasn't me. Stitcher Jim was the one who betrayed us." And then so basically you have to figure out who is lying to you and who is the one you can trust. And you do that by investigating all of the islands, looking for the bones of their crewmates and trying to figure out how they died. And basically it turns out Stitcher Jim killed them. Why did he kill them? I forget. Like, what was his deal?
Stitcher Jim was working for a nefarious master who is not named. And his master, he was just a betrayer within the ranks from the start. His master is some lord or pirate figure who likes to hoard gold. And for that reason, the Stitcher Jim infiltrated this Forsaken Shores Alliance for the purpose of trying to discover untold riches and steal it from them. But the master in question, the character that Stitcher Jim is working for, is heavily implied, and it's made very obvious that the character is the Gold Hoarder, which is a character in the lore of Sea of Thieves, has not shown up in the game yet, but is in the comics and a lot of the merchandise. And the Gold Hoarder is the original Gold Hoarder. It's more confusing terminology because Gold Hoarders.
Yes.
Gold Hoarders is one of the trading companies in the game. It's a group of people who will collect your gold for you when you sell treasure chests. They have keys that allow them to open the treasure chests that you find in the seas, and then they give you a cut. So that's the reason that you have to cash in treasure chests in order to earn gold. But anyway, the original Gold Hoarder, whom this faction sprung out of and has long since become disconnected from, is a skeleton, and he's basically supplanted his body parts one by one with gold prosthetics until he's this mass of gold and bone. And he's some sort of bad guy, and Stitcher Jim works for him, and we don't exactly know the nature of that, his crime organization, what his deal is. But they sabotaged the Forsaken Shores Alliance to try and get at their gold. Which didn't work because we found out.
Do you think we'll eventually find out that all of those prosthetics he's added really improves his golf game? Because I feel like that would be an important contribution to the lore of the Rare shared universe, that the Gold Hoarder was the first one to discover that prosthetic golfing fingers really improve his long game.
I think we can assume pretty safely that is where they're going with it. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, the Gold Hoarder, the proper singular noun there, the Gold Hoarder, is one of the major antagonists they've been kind of building up pre-release along with Captain Flameheart, and they've been slowly, so Cursales alluded to Flameheart, now Forsaken Shores has alluded to the Gold Hoarder, so they're doing a very slow build-up to these off-screen threats. So, yeah, I like that it's just a kind of a slow build, and they're building up anticipation through the expanded universe and all of that, so I like it. I appreciate it. It really does make it feel like Sea of Thieves is a living, breathing world, and that there are things that there are events that we're building to that it's kind of foreboding, and it's a different way for Rare to tell a story, because this is their first really ongoing game that doesn't have a definitive ending. So it's kind of neat to sit back and experience this as they dole it out. I'm sure people are getting frustrated by, the game's been out for 8 months now. How have they not had Captain Flameheart in the game? But I like it. I like it. There's plenty to do now, right. So it's not like...
Well, and there's a balance there where, Rare has said the main story of the game is what you make of it. It's the stories you tell with your friends by interacting with the tools and features of the game. So when you go and play for 3 hours, the stories that you're telling are exclusive to you as they spring out of the emergent gameplay opportunities that the sandbox of Sea of Thieves affords you. Now, granted, they also want to tell stories within that framework that they've written, but there has to be, I think that they're hesitant to make that too much part of the gameplay, where you're just experiencing a story that Rare wrote instead of out there creating these emergent opportunities with the sandbox. So
right,
there's a balance there.
But I also think they also realized too, at some point in development, that Rare fans really do get off on lore. So they have this nice balance now where I think ideally at first they lean towards, the players create all the stories, it's going to be very hands off, and then they realized at some point in development, no, we'll need to have kind of the best of both worlds there. And I really think that aspect of Sea of Thieves, the lore, the story, the mythology, that's really being cultivated by Adam Park, Pete Hentz, Mike Chapman, Chris Alcock, who wrote the novel. So yeah, it's
and we'll talk more about where they're going with the story when we get to future updates looking ahead. But as far as the Forsaken Shores go, kind of shifting gears here, in addition to just the campaign, it also added quite a bit of features, gameplay features that are permanent, ongoing, additions to the world. Outside of just adding new islands, there's other stuff going on there.
Well, let's talk about the islands, first of all, because I think that is the main draw, at least just on the surface of what this added. So the Devil's Roar, it's not just cosmetically a new region. It's a region that operates very differently from the other three. So while the islands would be different in the wilds compared to the Shores of Plenty, and they're the aesthetic differences. The wilds look like basically Crocodile Isle, and the ancient isles are sunny and filled with like all these ruins. Devil's Roar, the islands are all volcanic or in a heavily volcanic area. So there are features on the island that are exclusive to the Devil's Roar. and really make it, I believe you said on your blog that it's the game's hard mode, and I think that's a very apt way of putting it. Because
I think it was probably a main goal of theirs that they don't want to just add new islands. There has to be new features that are unique to those islands. There has to be like a gameplay reason to go to these islands rather than other islands. So, and that's where the volcanic theme kind of comes about.
Yeah, so we've got geysers on every island. So, regardless of whether or not an island is erupting, there are geysers, geological activity. So while you're walking along, you'll see these bursts of hot steam and water bursting through the beaches and the jungles. And these geysers can launch you up into the air, and they will do that quite frequently if you're not watching where you're going. So, but you can also use those to your advantage. If say, skellies are attacking you, the geysers will destroy the skellies. So it's a nice, it's a nice feature. It gets a little aggravating at times when you're exploring the islands and you constantly get launched by a geyser. But again, this is the game's hard mode. This is essentially not a leisurely stroll through the park. So you've constantly got to be on guard, watching where you're going, being alert, being cognizant of everything going on in your environment around you. And that they're just a persistent part of that. But the main threat, the biggest threat, the most dangerous threat you can face are when the islands erupt. And there's a level of uncertainty there because you'll know that it's possibly going to erupt when the earthquakes start. And that's when the whole island starts to shake, and it's a really cool effect, enhanced by the rumble of the controller. But that doesn't necessarily mean an island's going to erupt. It just means the geological activity is getting pretty severe. It's going to erupt, though, when you see smoke billowing from the top of the island or from a neighboring oceanic rock that can also erupt. So if you're on a smaller island that doesn't have a volcano on it, you're not in the clear because there will be a neighboring rock out at sea that will be within spitting distance of the island, and that can erupt. So you're going to be in danger no matter where you are in the Devil's Roar.
And to serve that point, you're even in danger on the outpost in the Devil's Roar. The outpost itself is a active volcano that can erupt. So that was like a main point that they stress, is that there is nowhere that's safe. But the real quick thing they do that the things they do to balance the fact that this is hard mode, one is the fact that you never spawn into the game directly into the Devil's Roar. You spawn into one of the main three regions, and then you can choose if you want to take on the quote unquote hard mode. You can choose to enter the Devil's Roar after you've stocked up supplies or whatever. And then two, everything you're collecting treasure-wise in the Devil's Roar is Devil's Roar specific variations on the usual loot that you encounter that is worth significantly more treasure, usually double.
Yeah.
So you're earning about double the treasure in order to deal with the more difficult threats.
Right. So the risk reward factor, has definitely been upped. So it definitely makes the difficult. It's not just difficult just for the sake of difficulty or for giving people who've been playing the game since launch a greater challenge. It actually does pay off. And I like that. Yeah, it is kind of this closed ecosystem in the game. So if you don't want to deal with the Devil's Roar in a particular gaming session, you don't have to, but it's there if you're feeling up to it. But yeah, when the island explodes, or when one of the neighboring ocean rocks explode, then or erupts, then you've got basically a couple of factors that that change. So not only do you have the molten rocks falling down on you on the neighboring sea, but you've also got the lava flows on the islands, and you've got the superheated water around the islands. So basically what this means is if you're swimming back to the ship and you get caught, you can basically scald yourself to death. And also the lava flows mean that there's really very little safe places to stand on the islands. And so you have to like find shelter if you're trapped on an island. And so yeah, that I actually really enjoy getting stuck on an island, I have to say, when it's erupting, because I like having to cower for my life. There's something safe and comforting about going into a womb-like state, whether it be a nice cavern or something that I hide in. Basically what I'm saying is I wish I was a fetus, Jeff. I really long for the days when I didn't really have to do anything but get fed through a cord.
I've always thought that lava caves are a lot like uteruses.
Yeah.
So I get what you're saying there. I get that. Yeah, and actually there is something kind of peaceful in an ironic way with all of the chaos going on around you. When you're standing inside a cave and you can see lava around your feet, but so you can't really walk. Like you found the one safe place to stand. And there's lava everywhere, but you are safe, and you hear the volcano erupting outside, or you can see rocks smashing near the cave's door, the cave's entrance, I should say. But you're safe, and you just kind of wait it out. Or if you are really ballsy, if you're a risky type of guy, I mean, you can try and get some progress done for your voyage while eruptions are happening. It all depends on how risky do you want to be. You know, you're gonna die a lot, but you're going to have a lot of fun when you're fighting these environmental dangers. And there's a lot of fun to that. And then some of the things that they introduced, or one major feature they introduced, actually really helps with the new threats, a tool that you can use to counteract these threats, which is the rowboat.
Yeah, so the rowboat is a major addition. It's one that has essentially been alluded to or promised since before the game even launched. It's been featured in art for the game. The loading screen. Well, the box art itself has a rowboat on it. So yeah, it's been something that we've known is potentially coming. So to actually have it and have a use for it, they didn't just add a rowboat for the sake of it. You actually need the rowboat if you're going to stay out of the scalding water and get back to your ship. So yeah, it was a great time to introduce it. And I kind of love the rowboat, Jeff. The rowboat it's hard to get a handle on it, but once you do, it's a lot of fun to just row across the ocean. And obviously at much slower speeds than you do get in a sloop, brigantine, or galleon. And it should be pointed out, the rowboat is not something that is just a permanent part of your ship or anything. You have to find a rowboat and take it back to the ship. So it's still a kind of a rare commodity. So when you do find a rowboat, you're like, oh shit, it's a rowboat. Well, I better take it back to the ship because we might need it.
Yeah, rowboat is just one of those fun new tools that open up this sandbox opportunities, really, we talked about earlier. So there's a thing in the game that they talk about a lot that is sort of in-session progression. How every player, every crew, when they start a session of Sea of Thieves, they have a very bare minimum amount of supplies. You've got some cannonballs, some wood planks for repairs, some bananas for health. But if you want some of the other tools, if you want to have gunpowder barrels to use as explosives, if you want to have cursed cannonballs that are going to help you to, use curses against skeletons or against other player ships, or if you want a rowboat, which is an extremely useful tool to be able to travel back and forth from land if you can't get your boat to park close, and that is useful not just in the Devil's Roar, where you have to deal with volcanoes and superheated water, But you can use those rowboats, and you can find those rowboats all over the world of Sea of Thieves. So they've impacted the game outside of just the Devil's Roar.
Right.
But the thing is, it's something you're going to have to go out and find through the course of a session. And as you play, you'll build up, you'll find better tools, better things, cannonballs and rowboats and things like that. So it's just a new tool. And that's pretty exciting that they're still adding in new tools like that really change up the gameplay in a session-to-session basis.
Yeah, it's kind of amazing to go back and look at what the game was March 20th when it launched compared to where it is now. It's just so robust now, and there's so many things you can do, so a variety of ways you can play it. And yeah, you still got people complaining, well, when are you going to add like content? Like what? But it is basically such a alluring sandbox now, where like you can make so much magic with you and your friends. You just have to have the right group of people, I think. It's like anything. It's down to who you play with and how you play it. So if you can't have fun with this, I'm sorry, but there's more than enough now that it's a varied experience every time you play. Seapost.
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 All right.
Yeah, they're a new, I guess, shop type in the game. So basically, before Seapost, the only shops were on the outpost. So you go to an outpost, you could hit up a weapon shop, a clothing shop, an item shop. But Seapost are these little, kind of like similar to little farmer stands alongside the road. If you want to buy some turnips, there's Farmer Cumberbatch sitting on the side of the road selling his turnips to you. That's essentially what Seapost are. They're run by weirdos out at sea, kind of like on some I don't know. They're just sitting out at sea. I don't know how they get there. They don't have a ship or anything, but I guess they get dropped off. Some sort of park and ride or something.
They don't have to go anywhere. They just live there.
Yeah, I know, but how did they get there in the first place? Like that's what is there?
They
like
washed up. They washed up.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
So the Seaposts, they basically just offer a very small selection, like two to four items, specific items. It could be, I think these are cosmetics. Could be a jacket and a new type of blunderbuss and a pair of boots or whatever. 3 or 4 random items, but at a discounted price.
Mm-hmm.
And that kind of supply of what is on offer just kind of cycles out every so often. It's sort of at random. But one thing that it did, though, is it added in a bunch of new NPCs.
Yeah.
Because every Seapost has an NPC. So
yes, and there is one I just have to bring up, and I think everybody who plays the game that's on the DK Vine staff and everybody who plays with us is kind of in love with Brian of Brian's Bazaar. That is actually how he's listed. So he runs a shop called Brian's Bazaar, but when you actually, like all of the Seapost shopkeeps, they're always blank of blank. So Brian, his shop is Brian's Bazaar. His name is Brian. So he's actually listed as Brian of Brian's Bazaar. And I think this scratches 2 itches for us. One, it's very close to the DK Vine vernacular of blank off of blank. So you've got, say, Count Batula from off of Congress Bad Fur Day.
Diddy Kong from off of Mario Party 10.
Right. But also, Brian's Bazaar brings to mind, of course, the best Brothers Bear, Bazaar Bear.
He is definitely one of the Brothers Bear.
Oh, well, I know
who can argue that.
I know who you're going to argue for, Jeff. I know you're a brash man. It's in your pirate name.
Actually, I prefer Bjorn.
Oh, really?
Bjorn.
Are you gonna have to change your Xbox handle again?
Jeff the Bjorn.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which I think that the word Bjorn just means bear, right? Bjorn.
I mean, I know they named Benny and Bjorn. We're probably pronouncing it wrong, but they named them after the men from ABBA. So
okay, so it is Swedish, Icelandic, German, Hungarian, blah blah blah. But it is a word meaning bear. I just googled it. So his name is Bear. Bjorn is Bear. So that's fun.
He is Bear. But why doesn't Mario Wiki update Bear's entry with might be Bjorn, because Bjorn means bear.
And why don't they answer my emails? That's the other one. So it's just a lot of questions.
Where's their Sea of Thieves page on Super Mario Wiki? Because it's a vital
don't they
part.
know that the salty hippo is in the canon of Sea of Thieves?
The salty hippo from Banjo-Kazooie, which is a spin-off of Diddy Kong Racing, which is the spin-off of Donkey Kong Country. Come on, Mario Wiki. This is so relevant to your interest. Not everybody.
Too many Wario games to cover.
Yeah, not everybody.
Wario games.
Not everybody sees the world in the magical lens that we do, Jeff. Sad to say. But
C-Post actually. Oh, sorry. Do you have more to say about Brian?
No, I was gonna segue into cargo runs, but it looks like you're having no problem doing that yourself.
I was just going to talk more about Brian.
Oh, well, let's talk about Brian some more. So, do you think we're going to get a Brian of Brian's Bizarre spinoff?
I hope so. I just wanted to say that in spite of just his name that we find appealing, he also is a funny character. I think a lot of the NPCs that they added with the Forsaken Shores have a lot of great personality and funny dialogue. So, that's, I don't know who writes it. I don't know who's the dialogue writer, but they deserve as much kudos as anyone else. They're doing a good job.
Well, and it's funny because when the game launched, some complaints from Rare fans and particular people in the DK Vine community is, well, the NPCs aren't memorable. They're just people, and they have no personality, which I disagree with. There are different personalities for every NPC you visit, but they really went above and beyond. I think with the new NPCs, they definitely are all a bit more eccentric than the past batch.
Speaking of new NPCs and C-Posts,
yes, segue.
The C man, here we go. The C-Posts aren't the only thing that brought with it new NPCs, and selling. I'm doing a great job, aren't I, Hyle?
This is terrific.
Selling discounted cosmetics is not the only use of a C-Post.
I would get so ripped to this podcast right now if I was listening to it dude, in the gym.
If somebody is listening to this on Stitcher at the gym, they are just chugging it on the fucking elliptical right now, going nuts.
My cum gutters would be able to solve so many mysteries.
I feel like if you listen to the Kongversation podcast, you probably go to the gym and just use that big inflated ball, and you don't really know what to do with it, but that's all you do. That's the only piece of equipment is you use that ball, and you kind of, I don't know, you lean your back on it and move your arms up and down on it. Anyway,
they're humping it. They're humping it. They're going at it so vigorously.
Oh, it's not, they're not going on back they're definitely belly first on that ball.
Yeah.
Yeah. So cargo runs.
Cargo runs. What are cargo runs?
End of that segue. So cargo runs, Hyle, it's this whole other thing. It's the next. So cargo runs are a new type of voyage that was added with the Forsaken Shores update. It's a new type of voyage under the Merchant Alliance banner. So doing these voyages earns you reputation with the Merchant Alliance, giving you an alternate path to reaching your maxing out your levels instead of the old way, which was gathering animals, chickens and pigs and snakes, to sell at outposts. Now you can run deliveries of cargo. And what those entail are picking up a cargo from a certain NPC and then delivering it to another NPC.
Yeah.
This can include the NPCs on the sea posts, NPCs on the regular outposts, or also even further new NPCs scattered throughout the islands of the game.
Just random weirdos hanging around. Yeah, so this was something that I think Rare really tried to figure out, because when the game launched, most people did not really gravitate towards the Merchant Alliance. I enjoy the Merchant Alliance, but even I have to admit it's the one I play the least. If I'm going to do a voyage, Merchant Alliance is usually something I avoid. It's easier to do when you have a large group of people, and it's fun to do on a stream. But even then, sometimes you're just like, I just want to dig up treasure. Or I just want to fight skellies. I don't really want to have to Noah it up and get a bunch of animals for my arc. Like, because you have to find like the right colored chickens.
Sick reference.
I know, right? It's from this Bible book. You probably never heard of it. It's called the Bible.
I didn't read that Bible. I read some other Bibles. Whoops.
Yeah, no, I know, like, because people just like, why are you talking about the Bible in the Kongversation? I'm like, they're going to add Black Eye to the Bible eventually. All right, just
eventually
give it time.
We're getting our homework in.
Yeah.
So cargo runs are really, you're like you said, they're trying to kind of mix up or give alternate methods to progress that Merchant Alliance, which is generally seen as the weakest of the three factions. And the new voyage type is, I think it's a pretty nice mix up to the gameplay loop. Instead of the old way, which was go find some chickens or pigs or snakes and then deliver them to an outpost. Now they've really simplified the challenge in that was getting the animal. That's your challenge. Go find them and get them. Find it, get it, bring it back.
Keep them alive.
Getting your cargo, keeping them alive. Now getting the cargo is the easy part because all you have to do is talk to an NPC and it says, here, have the cargo. But delivering it is the tough part because the main challenge is maintaining the quality of the cargo, taking care of its health. There's 3 different types of cargo, and each one has a different sort of method by which it can become damaged. And your goal is to keep it as undamaged as possible. Every time you've taken damage to it in one way or another, it will deplete the value of it gradually. And so you've got your 3 different types of cargo. Which is a very different way of doing it.
Yeah, so basically you get to live the existential nightmare of being a UPS driver. Except instead of the brown short shorts, you get to wear stretchy Kraken pants.
Hey!
So we've got, the three different types of cargo are rum bottles, which is the first appearance in-game of rum. You can't drink it, but it's nice to see that rum, which is such a staple of pirates and pirate lore and legend, that it's been featured in the expanded universe materials, but in game you only have grog, so it's nice that rum at least plays some sort of role in the game. You got rum bottles.
Well, I would think that after you deliver the rum, they use the rum to manufacture the grog.
Right, but grog is just basically watered down rum.
It's watered down, yeah.
So you've got, by the way, on Halloween, my wife and I made a spiced apple cider rum.
Nice.
It was really good.
Yeah,
it was really good. And
one of my go-to drink. Oh, sorry, you go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say it was really good alcohol that I put in my mouth.
Nice.
Yeah.
No, one of my go-to drinks is hot cider with whiskey. Just heat up some cider. Sometimes I spice it, sometimes I don't. But I just heat up some cider and put some whiskey in it, and it's good to go. And if I'm really sick, I put some NyQuil in there.
Oh, don't try this at home, children. Because I know you children, you 8-year-olds who love the Kongversation. You take everything we say at face value, and you're like, I'm going to put some NyQuil in my rum.
Let's be real.
Or
all the children that listen to the Kongversation never tune in. They never tune in for the Sea of Thieves episodes.
They don't. They're like, when are you going to talk about Fortnite?
When are they going to do a battle royale mode?
No, I would also like
the rum bottles.
I would also like to apologize to the fine people at Angry Orchard. You're still my hard cider of choice, but you don't have a rum variant out there. You have rosé out now, and that's really weird. Because come out with a rum variant and make life simple for me, Angry Orchard. Come on. So yeah, with the rum bottles, basically you can't jostle them around too much. If you want to keep them in prime condition, you can't jump up and down. Basically,
you'll crack the glass.
You crack them, and I've never seen glass this fragile in real life, but I assume that pirates don't really have the grace of a ballet dancer, so they take a lot of very deliberate steps. And
then again, I've never held a crate filled with bottles of rum and then tried to jump up and down before. It might break. I mean, maybe that's how they work in real life.
I want to try that now. I actually want to put this to the test. We need to Mythbuster it, Jeff. We need to try all three of these cargoes.
Thiefbuster.
Yeah, so basically...
Yeah, if you jump up and down, if you take a hit, like if your ship gets fired on by cannon fire or attacked by a megalodon, anything of that nature, crashing your boat into shore.
So what's
the crack them up.
Where's the safest place to put the bottles of rum on the ship? Give us your advice.
I stick them on the top deck, just close to where I can deliver. Close so I don't have to walk far with them. Some people are like, I'm going to grab it and walk all the way to the basement of the ship. No, I just keep it on the top deck with me because it doesn't matter if they get rained on or anything like that. And then the trick is when you go to deliver them, jump off the boat with them in your hands and land in deep water. Mm. If you try to land on the beach or you try and land on a dock or whatever, you're going to take that fall damage from landing hard on your feet. But if you jump with them in your hands and you land in deep water and you sink into the water, you don't take any fall damage. The bottles will stay in perfect condition, and then you just walk up the beach.
Here's a Sea of Thieves
to
pro
where
tip.
You gotta go.
Don't jump into a shark's mouth with the rum, because the shark will eat you.
Yeah, that is a pro tip. Okay. Write it down.
Yep. So we've got fancy cloth, fancy French aristocratic cloth. Whole box or crate full of fancy silken cloths, luxurious cloths. That's what. Why? Yeah, they should have called them fancy French aristocratic cloths. Honestly, but I guess they used all of their creativity on Brian of Brian's Bazaar. Luxurious cloths.
They did, yeah.
Basically, you can't get them wet because, like the gremlins, you get them wet or you feed them after midnight. Shenanigans will ensue.
Shenanigans. Yeah.
No, they'll get all mildewed and gross or something if you get them wet, because apparently when you're a seafaring people in the Caribbean or in this pocket realm accessible near the Caribbean, what you really want are cloths that can't withstand the elements. Yeah, so basically keep them dry and you'll be good. That means if it's raining... Go. What? Is this a pro tip?
I was going to say, just to clarify, I figured this is a great time to interrupt Hyle. Just to clarify, if these take the damage from being rained on or if the rum bottles get cracked, they're not completely, disposed of. They gradually reduce their value from top tier down like 3 or 4 tiers. And even at the bottomest tier where they are as destroyed as they can be, they still are worth some money, just the minimum amount of money.
Right. It's like shopping for clothing on like Rodeo Drive versus going to Goodwill. So it just drops in quality as things...
It's like... You get like a jar of beefaroni, but there's a big ass dent in the jar, and you're like, "Hey, this jar is dented," and they give you like 10 cents off.
Congratulations, Chef! I think it's the very first time on the Kongversation that the words beefaroni have ever been uttered. So,
I mean, really, that's an embarrassment on your end as a content creator. You guys not enough beefaroni in your lives. Yeah, I can't get the cloth wet. Is the main thing with the cloth is if it's raining, you keep them below deck is the bottom line. Keep them below deck, and then you got to park the boat close to shore. So exactly the opposite of the rum bottles. When you jump from your boat, you don't want to land in water So you want to park next to a dock or park over a beach so that you can jump right down onto land.
Wait a minute, Jeff. Couldn't you just use the
not let
rowboat?
them... Yes, that's the other option. So that's the other option. You can do all of these things: rum bottles, cloths. You can load them into a rowboat and then just row them to shore, and then you don't have to worry about jumping around with the rum. You don't have to worry about getting the cloth wet. Now, keep in mind though, if you're out at sea, like a decent distance from an island, having cloth in a rowboat can still get it wet from the waves. The waves will reach over the edge of the rowboat and get your cloth wet. But if you're just going from the boat to shore at a very short distance, yes, that works.
I like to put the cloths on the bed, on the captain's bed, because that's going to be the driest point in the ship at all times.
Yes, unless you're me and you wet the bed.
Well, look, I'm fine if you urinate anywhere on the ship but the bed. Like, if I still don't know where these pirates defecate and where they urinate. That really, I mean, I assume there's slop buckets, but that's not an in-game item yet. So it's left to our imagination.
Aim off you lean off the side of the boat and you poop in the ocean.
I can't wait until that content update. It's going to be an exciting patch that Rare adds. I don't know.
Yeah, hopefully you can load them in the cannons and stuff.
Yeah.
Oh
my God, that would be amazing. Just the flinging poop back and forth.
Yeah, poop flinging. Yeah, that's the next update.
Plants.
You get Forsaken Shores and then poop. Okay.
Plants. Yeah,
Plants.
It's the last one. Plants. You got to keep them wet. Reverse gremlin.
If you're all of the many deliveries of plants, that's a pretty standard cargo item to deliver in the pirate world is plants, right?
Right.
Pirates deliver plants.
Yeah, they
gotta keep them wet.
Yeah, gotta keep them wet. So this means that in the hull of your ship, you've got to keep a little bit of water flooding it. Not too much, of course, because then you could eventually sink your ship if you get too much. But you want to keep a little bit of water in the base of the floor at all times to keep these plants nice and moist and succulent. And you would think depriving them of sunlight would have an effect, but apparently it doesn't. Apparently they've had their fill of the sun, and they just need that sweet, sweet seawater to stay vibrant.
Yeah, seawater is all they need. Yeah, so that's the thing. You've got 3 different varieties of cargo. All 3 have their own separate way in which you have to keep them safe. Keep these ones dry, keep these ones wet, keep this one from being, damaged, jostled in any way. And the challenge is just in keeping them maintained.
Yeah. Everything
else about the voyage is easy. It just tells you, go directly to point A, get your cargo, go directly to point B and deliver your cargo. But it's on the way between on points is where the challenge happens, which is the inverse of most voyages. Most voyages don't have any challenge on the boat while sailing. The challenge happens on the island once you get there. So this is a little bit of an inverse to the usual gameplay scheme. But here's actually a really cool difference with cargo runs that makes them different than other types of voyage. Once you start the voyage, it tells you, go pick up your cargo. And once you've gotten the cargo, the voyage disappears from your inventory, and the cargo has a note on it that tells you where to go. And at that moment, you can put another voyage down before you've even delivered the cargo. So what that entails is, what that amounts to, is that you can chain these. You can work on another voyage while delivering the cargo, which was not the case with the old merchant voyages where you were delivering chickens and pigs and snakes. With those, you had to go directly to drop them off before you could do anything else. Yeah. Now you can start another voyage. You can start another cargo run and go pick up more cargo. You could start a Souls voyage and go do that while the cargo sits on the boat if you're feeling, risky or whatever. So that really changes up the grind if you're grinding out Merchant Alliance reputation. Very different from the old way of doing it.
Of course, like you said, the risk is greater there. Like, you really want to... Basically, the longer you have the cargo on the ship, the greater danger you're putting that cargo, because you could be attacked by another ship, you could be attacked by a megalodon, kraken, all sorts of things. So it's especially with the rum bottles. Yeah.
Well, there's also Devil's Roar versions of every voyage now. So if you're in the Devil's Roar, if you want to do a Devil's Roar cargo run, you're going to have more valuable varieties of rum bottles and cloths and plants. But they're also going to be more fragile.
And you're going to have fucking volcanoes spewing molten rocks at your ship. So
right. And you're in the Devil's Roar with all the dangers that are associated with that. So yeah, if you want double the value, double the reward, but obviously significantly greater risk, you can do Devil's Roar variety of cargo runs and other voyage types. Devil's Roar, Order of Souls voyages, Gold Hoarder voyages.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, honestly, I need to spend more time with cargo runs. It was added, I think, in the middle of the second week of October. So I think like roughly almost halfway into the event, but a little bit before the halfway mark. So yeah, this wasn't actually part of Forsaken Shores when it launched. It took a while. So I like the slow rollout that, we have this to look forward to. That was a nice aspect of it. And, but when it rolled out, I was still too busy worrying about, other commendations. So I indulged in it, but I didn't really like go all in on the cargo runs. So now that it's over, and now that the follow-up Bilge Rat Adventure Festival of the Damned, now that I've done everything there, it would be nice to just have some fun with cargo runs before the next event launches. All right, Jeff. Final thoughts on Forsaken Shores. How, in your mind, you who runs the Sea of Thieves blog, Golden Sands blog post, and who plays the game religiously every week, how do you think it compared to Hungering Deep and Cursed Sails?
So there's two aspects to look at here when it comes to a major content update like this. There is one, the content itself, the features, the set of features, and new, whether they be new tools, new islands, which is the main thing here, and the new threats, new voyage type, cargo run. This is the first new voyage type they've added to the game since the game launched. That's pretty big. So those additions to the game that are now permanent, they're always now part of the game. You look at that as one thing, but then you also can look at what was the limited time nature of the sort of the event itself, the event that was the harbinger for these new features. In that way, I would say that the features themselves, the feature set introduced in the Forsaken Shores update, was substantial. It took the longest amount of lead time out of any of the updates so far. In a weird way, I know that it is bigger than what's come before, but it somewhat feels not as big as Cursed Sails did because of the features that were introduced in the Devil's Roar are kind of cordoned off in their own side of the world.
Yeah.
And you can avoid them. Whereas you encounter the Cursed Sails features all the time, whether they be the new Alliance system, the Brigantine ship, which was the 3-player ship, and then skeleton ships, cursed cannonballs, all of these things that got introduced, hair dyes, etc. Those are very global features, whereas the Devil's Roar region has a lot going on with environmental effects, volcanoes, geysers, earthquakes, water, super hot water, lava flows, all these things, but they're very localized to the one region. They're not a global new feature that I'm going to interact with every day. So in that way, it didn't quite feel as big, even though it expanded the size of the world by a whole third. You know what I mean? It is massive.
Yeah, it's like what I said earlier. As far as an event goes, it was probably my least favorite of the three. But for what it adds to the game, it will probably increase my enjoyment the most in the long run. So it's kind of a trade-off. And so while I look at like the Hungering Deep as still my favorite event, and I look at Cursed Sails as a ridiculously fun event that maybe went on a little bit too long and got a little repetitive at the end. Forsaken Shores, I really didn't really even feel like an event. It just felt like a big update. But in the long run, that's not going to matter because I will be enjoying what it added to the game long after the event, which is now ended, but has actually just faded into the past. So,
yeah, and as an event, as a story and as a set of challenges, it was pretty hands off.
Yeah,
there wasn't a boss to fight. It was just, and there wasn't really a handheld story. It was more, you find the story yourself, you engage with it as you want. It's all about kind of exploring at your own pace, the exploration and discovery of it. And that was good as its own different thing. But it certainly wasn't much in terms of, this is an event that I need to get online and engage with right now. Like the story of the Cursed Sails was something that like I had to go in and get on the battles, and find out the backstory of the warsmith and everything there. So yeah, I would agree with you. It's not my favorite campaign event, story, whatever. But it is a substantial set of features, and definitely, and having the new region, honestly, has kind of spread players out a little bit, where before, there was a PvP aspect to the game that was always present whether you wanted to engage with that or not. There was always the threat of, well, will another player attack me? And I think that the Forsaken Shores, the addition of the Devil's Roar region has spread people out just a little bit more. If you do go into the Devil's Roar, you're less likely to find people out there just hunting you down, because it's dangerous for them to be there as well. So there's a little give and take there. So it has some interesting implications, interesting changes to the social dynamic of all the ships on the server, that we're still seeing kind of how that's going to play out.
It adds further nuance to the experience, where I think before there was a lot more of that just blunt PvP, players kind of just trying to ignore any other way to play the game other than just kind of griefing each other, where now Rare has really diversified what you can do and what you can experience, which has then kind of forced players to change their perspective as well. So it's been interesting to see how they've actually built on the initial promise of the game versus the stubbornness of those actually playing it.
I do think the first three updates we've gotten have been a very nice balance of new features that were well requested or needed, but also each one kind of feeling different. First update, it added a couple tools and it added a new emergent world threat. The second update added some new tools and it added a new type of raid, which is a little bit bigger of a threat, but more localized, like you can choose to engage with it or not. And then the third update added some new tools and it added a new region, new islands, new lands to explore with its own new threats. So they've all felt very different, a lot of variety in the types of new content we're getting.
And I like that.
Which is great.
I really like that. As much as I say, the Hungering Deep is still my favorite, if they had just been two other variations of the Hungering Deep formula, I would be burned out on it by now and I'd be like, come on, are they going to do anything new? So I'm really thankful that they haven't repeated themselves and that it's been varied each time. So yeah, I might say this event was my least favorite. That doesn't mean I'm not appreciative of the event or I would have done it differently. It's just a matter of preferences. And like I said, what this actually adds to the game is much more meaningful and impactful in the long run when I'm playing this 2 to 3 years from now. it's going to matter a lot more than, say, having a drum. So,
Yeah.
But yeah, weirdly, honestly, the Festival of the Damned, the Bildrad adventure that came immediately after it, starting on Halloween, I think I had more fun with that than I had with the Forsaken Shores event itself. So, again, not knocking Forsaken Shores, but I think it just, as an event, as an in-game kind of limited time special snowflake of an experience, Festival of the Damned, which is the in-universe spin on Halloween and Day of the Dead, I think meant a lot more to me and came closest
it's
to 100
two very, very, very different styles of new content, where Festival of the Damned, to me, feels very much in the vein of the Skeleton Thrones event or the Hungering Deep event, where it really is something you're going to engage with for about 3 or 4 hours max, and it's like you're never going to really do any of those things again. You've done this one time sort of adventure that and then you're fulfilled. You've done everything there is to do with that, and now you're done with it. Whereas the Forsaken Shores was, here's a ton of new stuff.
Yeah.
And there's no direct, like, this is what you're going to do for 3 hours. This is the story to unfold. It's more just, here's all the new stuff. Engage with it at your own pace. Go discover it. And that's a very different style. And I think that the former, the Hungering Deep, the Festival of the Damned, the Bildrad adventure type of thing, that is obviously way more conducive to, like, streaming, if you want to stream like a one-time event, versus like the Forsaken Shores, which is, and I don't want to say this in a derogatory sense, but it is more of a grind. And not grind in a bad way at all, but it
not
is more
like
of
what people do to those exercise balls at the gym when listening to our show.
Right, yeah, at Stitcher Gym. Yeah, but really what Forsaken Shores has done, it's just got me excited for where the game goes from here. Because we do know a lot about what's coming, but we also really don't know. There's a lot of mystery as to what's coming later.
What's Cumberbatching?
And what's that?
What's Cumberbatching?
Yeah, what's Cumberbatching in the future? And there is a big content update, the fourth major content update coming later this month.
Yeah, and it sounds like it's going to be less event-driven, again, less story-driven, and more just a dump of new features, but even with less of a hook, a story hook than Forsaken Shores had. It's called Shrouded Spoils. Jeff, you're much more up on this than I am. Would you care to enlighten everybody at home?
Yeah, so Shrouded Spoils is it's coming in under the radar because it doesn't have like the past few updates have had a very marketable main new feature. And Shrouded Spoils is coming in under the radar because it doesn't have that, and people aren't talking about it, people aren't all that excited about it. But when they see what it is, they're going to be very happy with everything that it's brought. But basically what it is it's bringing improvements to features that already exist. And there is one main marquee new feature, which is a new weather effect in the world, which is large zones of rolling fog that can creep in from the horizon, and all of a sudden you're engulfed in it. And when you're in the fog, you can't see 10 feet in front of your boat. And all of a sudden, climbing up into the crow's nest of the ship becomes very valuable because you can see beyond the fog. You can get your head above the fog and see where islands are, see where rocks are, and it'll basically become necessary for navigation, unless you just have the map memorized like I do, and then you can drive the boat blindfolded. But not everyone is like that. So
not everybody's the Rain Man like you, or the Fog Man.
Not everybody gets to wear the squishy pants with the Kraken pants, but basically that's the main marquee new feature, which is relative to some of the marquee features of other events that seems pretty low key, pretty less substantial, but it actually is going to be a very cool new effect. But where the main draw of the update is is just a hodgepodge of odds and ends that have been long requested changes or features. Some examples are from now on, when you kill the Megalodon or the Kraken, it will drop rewards. There's going to be some mechanical changes to the Kraken and the Megalodon fights that can emerge and attack you in the middle of the sea. The skeleton AI ships, there's going to be some mechanical changes there. Mainly that in addition to being a raid battle that you can see off in the corner of the world and you can go choose to engage with, there will also be AI skeleton ships roaming the world. And you'll see them out on the seas, and suddenly the servers might feel significantly more populous because you have player ships and you've got AI ships all populating this world, and you don't know if they're going to be aggressive. If you come close, they're going to attack you, or maybe they're kind of doing their own thing and you can choose to ignore them. Obviously, attacking and sinking them is going to reap rewards as well. And then you've got new types of ship customization. You'll be able to customize the look of your wheel, your captain's wheel, your cannons, the capstan, raising and dropping the anchor. And a lot of features along those lines. Just things people have wanted for a long time. Changes to features that are there. They also said they're going to activate the other 6 skeleton forts. When the game launched, there were 9 skeleton forts scattered throughout the world, but only 3 of them are ever used in the raid battle, the skeleton fort showdown. And now they're going to activate all 6 other ones so that we're going to be fighting skeletons in brand new environments that we have never fought these battles in before on these other strongholds. So it's really coming in quietly, this update. People aren't talking about it as much as because the features that are coming are not brand new. They're not coming out of thin air. They're not like volcanoes and the first time we're seeing a Megalodon or the first time we're seeing an AI ship. What they're really doing is they're just making those long asked for improvements to features, and it's going to be very well received when it comes.
So this update, it wasn't done by one of the 3 teams. This was just kind of a pool of different stuff.
I believe this is a specific team working on this update. Yeah,
oh, okay.
But their goal from the outset was we're going to go and finish these features that have needed a tweak or have had long requested finishing touches, so to speak.
Gotcha.
And I'm pretty sure this is actually the Hungering Deep team that is putting this together. So just the way the timeline has worked out, when a team has finished an update and then jumped to the back of the line, we knew that when the game launched, they started up 3 teams, which were Hungering Deep, Cursed Sails, and Forsaken Shores. And then somewhere around midsummer, they started up a 4th team, which I am pretty confident was the team that is responsible for making the arena.
Yes, so the arena is what they just announced in Mexico City over the past weekend. And it is the 5th big update coming early 2019. Jeff, what is the arena?
So the arena is, and there's, I want to talk a little bit about this and another update that's coming after. Both of them share some similarities, but in very different ways. That's a weird sentence, but the arena sort of represents a new direction for Sea of Thieves. Sea of Thieves has had 3 content updates of adding new features, and then shortly a 4th one, which is sort of tidying up things. So odds and ends, features set. And I think that when Shrouded Spoils launches, you'll be able to very fairly consider that this is Sea of Thieves 2.0. We have now expanded the main game to this much of a point, and it's very much expanded. And after that, they're going to start taking things in a little different directions. First of all, the arena is a brand new mode in Sea of Thieves. It is the first edition of a new mode. Up until now, there's only been one mode, which is Sea of Thieves. From now on, they're going to rebrand that. the mode that you're used to is now called adventure mode. And on the main menu, before you launch into the game, you're going to choose, do I want to go to adventure mode and have these long-term emergent encounters like and progression that I've always been used to? Or do I want to jump into the arena, which is a new competitive mode? It's designed to take the experience of Sea of Thieves and turn it into sort of a micro session of the greatest hits. If I can play a 20 or 30-minute session that's purely competitive, and so far what they've talked about is that it's sort of a race to gather treasure. We're going to put a bunch of ships in the world, but they're going to be relegated to a small subsection of the Sea of Thieves called an arena. So you're going to have some islands within the Sea of Thieves to play in, but you can't go beyond that. It's maybe, one region or even smaller than that. We don't know how big an arena will be. And every player on their ship, every crew has some maps right off the offset to go gather treasure, and we all share the same maps. So when I look at a map and it says go to Smuggler's Bay and dig up these treasure chests, I know that all 5 other ships have that same map to that same treasure chest. And so instantly, it's a competitive sort of angle. If I go to an island, there might be a ship going to that same island. Do I want to avoid that one where, do I want to avoid the big island with the most X's on the map and try to fly in under the radar? Or do I want to jump right into the fray and sink them so that I'm the one with the advantage? I won the battle and I'm going to get all the treasure. And then once that session is ended, everyone plays for a time limit, and then the game tallies up your treasure and awards you a placing. First place, second place, third place, fourth place. And as you do that, you're then going to earn reputation in a brand new faction, a brand new trading company called the Sea Dogs. Sea Dogs, which are led by the NPC character DeMarco, who is being brought into the Sea of Thieves world originally from the Sea of Thieves comic books or comic series.
Well, DeMarco Singh is the character's name, and actually his sister is also featured, Lassetti Singh. So, the first instance of expanded universe characters actually making their way now into the core game. So the arena, despite being a separate mode, will still have repercussions for adventure mode as well.
Yeah, so this Sea Dogs faction, this sort of a PvP trading company, you're gaining reputation. All of a sudden, we now have 4 trading companies, and it has always been the case that in order to reach pirate legend status, that's sort of the end game goal, right? Every player wants to eventually become a pirate legend. The requirement to do that has always been you need to reach level 50 in 3 factions. Well, now we have a 4th faction, so it turns out you now have a choice. You just have to reach level 50 in any of those 3 factions in order to be a pirate legend. So maybe Merchant Alliance isn't for you, and you really just don't want to be a UPS driver. You can focus on the arena if that's a type of gameplay that appeals to you. And then that's going to earn you rewards that are exclusive to the arena and the Sea Dog faction. But those rewards, those cosmetics, can then be used in adventure mode. And all the cosmetics that you earn in adventure mode can be used in the arena. And you can never, obviously, you can't become a pirate legend just with the arena. You would also have to level up 2 other factions. So you'd have to play adventure mode as well if your aim is to become a pirate legend and get all those other types of cosmetics that are still exclusive to adventure mode.
Yeah, and I like that they're linked. That it's not just a completely separate mode, completely isolated from the adventure mode. I like that within Sea of Thieves, they're still very much part of the same continuity, lore. Still, your pirate character is still connected and can jump back and forth. It's not just this completely separate thing that's going to bifurcate the gameplay and mean that obviously people are going to gravitate towards one or the other, but it still matters. So that's kind of a relief. And it seems to me that the reasoning behind the arena is probably, to answer or a few things that have cropped up, mainly, satisfy the itch that some players have for just the straight PvP experience. But it's also an answer to the rival pirate game coming from Ubisoft, Skull and Bones.
Yeah, well, and I think that one of the benefits of the arena is, and they said that the arena kind of sprung out of a thing that they were already making in-house, which was they would take Sea of Thieves and try to create show floor demos where you could get sort of a 30-minute condensed experience of Sea of Thieves, which could include combat. It could include, the treasure hunting and all various threats and everything, and try to make that into a show floor experience demo that people can experience in bite-sized chunks.
Similar to E3 2016.
Exactly. And I think that is a massively valuable tool to have built into the game as its own mode, where players who jump into the game from Game Pass, they have Game Pass, so they have access to Sea of Thieves. They can jump into the arena and they can very quickly get an idea for what is possible in Sea of Thieves. What are the features? What is the idea behind it? Like what is my thought? Trying to get an idea for what Sea of Thieves is without a friend to hold your hand can be a daunting experience. If you jump into adventure mode at an outpost and you don't know exactly what's going on or who to talk to or what to do, I think that having that more structured, shortened experience is massively valuable just to sell people on the game. And then you're going to get people who go from that into adventure mode. And at the same time, you're going to get people who love adventure mode and still put time into it, but maybe they don't have a lot of time to play a full session, and they can then get those bite-sized chunks of competition and treasure hunting in the arena. So I think it's a benefit to everybody to have this mode here. It's a huge benefit for marketing Sea of Thieves and selling people on Sea of Thieves. But also, I want to stress, I don't think it's going to take away anything from adventure mode. And the reason I say that is, like we said, the game launched and they originally planned we're going to have 3 separate teams working on Sea of Thieves. And then those teams are going to get into a leapfrogging rotation of updates. So when Team 1 is done with their update, they're going to jump in line and they're going to make the 4th update. When Team 2 is done, they'll jump in line and make the 5th update, et cetera, et cetera. That was the way they structured the game post-launch, the development of the game. But sometime in the summer is when they came up with the idea that they wanted to do the arena, and it was at that time that they created a 4th team. This team was never part of the plan. And so the arena is not taking away from the 3 teams that we currently have working on adventure mode. The arena is its own team. It's working separately, but obviously it's using features that are being introduced and designed for adventure mode. Like the arena team is not the one inventing the Megalodon, even if the arena ends up having Megalodon in it. We still have those 3 adventure mode teams that are making they're all of the innovations, really, that are fleshing out the tool set, fleshing out the dangers and threats and locations and everything that are building on the Sea of Thieves. And those 3 teams haven't slowed down. In fact, they're making bigger updates and more content than they ever have before. And we do have some hints as to what is coming after the arena. What is the next update? This was teased months ago when Joni at one point said the next big update is going to be called something that rhymes with fall snails. And we in the community have come to assume or theorize that it's going to be called Tall Tales. And that the next update
Conquer
after the
64?
arena is Tall, yeah.
Oh, that's 12 Tales. No, never mind.
That's, yes. Tall Pocket Tales. Every time they describe this feature, this update that's coming, in a way, it's got some similarities with the arena in that they say, Well, now that we've kind of fleshed out a lot of the tools and threats and basic ideas to flesh out Sea of Thieves, now let's do some stuff that's going to take it in a different direction. And the arena is going to do that, but this update is also going to do that, except it is within the confines of adventure mode. And what this update is going to bring is, in some fashion, a rework to new types of quests. And these quests are going to be more focused on lore, and story narrative. Things that are more hands-on because they know their fans want to dive into stories and lore. And so if the arena is a competitive multiplayer mode, I'm theorizing that Tall Tales is going to be a sort of story mode. But instead of a separate mode, it is all within the framework of adventure. You're going to have quests that you can go on, and I'm thinking that that's where we're going to get your payoff for characters like Flameheart or the Gold Hoarder, maybe Captain Blackeye, or things like that, because this update is described as being very much a game changer, very much something new and exciting, and it's been pushed back because this update was supposed to come this year, even before the arena. And the schedule of when these updates are coming has been pushed around because the Tall Tales update had such a significant amount of scope creep. Basically, what they wanted to do with it grew bigger and bigger during development, and they realized that to deliver on what they wanted to do, they were going to make something much bigger, and it's delayed as a result of that. And then Joe Nate described it recently as just the foundation or a framework of story opportunities later in the game. Like, this is the first update of its kind that brings this type of story to the game. And now they've got a framework where in the future they'll be able to do more with it, and future updates that are additional stories, additional narratives, additional expansion of the lore with NPCs or whatever that might bring. So it's very exciting. The sandbox that is Sea of Thieves Adventure Mode is going to hit what I consider 2.0 once the Shrouded Spoils launches. And then at that time, we get a competitive multiplayer mode and then a brand new direction with story-focused quests that we've never had before. And then beyond that, there's still yet more traditional content updates in the works, including pets and including more features that we've come accustomed to, like what was introduced in the Cursed Sails and the Forsaken Shores. So it's a really exciting time.
Yeah, absolutely. And, who knows where the future might lead, because, we've got this entirely separate mode now with the arena. Maybe, you keep saying adventure mode, and it keeps bringing to mind, of course, Diddy Kong Racing. In my diseased mind, that's how it works. So I'm thinking maybe we'll get a time trials mode too, and that's where we can finally have TT in the game. Just have race the ships across the ocean and have TT time you or try to beat your ghost, and that would be great too. And you could have Brian from off of Brian's Bazaar be the center point of that, because he's a fan favorite. He is the fan favorite. So yeah, why not just have it be Brian from off of Brian Bazaar's Racing, and have TT be in that. Really, so
with the arena, what it does to me, for me, is it shows that the thing that Sea of Thieves is broader than we thought before. What Sea of Thieves can become is very broad, very open for potential, and the fact that they're willing to introduce an entire separate mode from adventure mode, but tied together, still tightly wound into the same fabric of progression, and not taking anything away from the development of adventure mode, that shows to me that where Sea of Thieves goes in the next year, in the next 8 months, we have no idea where it could go, but the possibilities are endless. We know they're willing to take it in very new directions. So that's really exciting. And I'm also pretty confident in the things that I do love about Sea of Thieves, the lore, the exploration, and just the open world sandbox, all of these different features they're all going to be taken care of. They're all going to continue to get expansion. So it's a really exciting time for Sea of Thieves going forward.
Never been a better time to join Sea of Thieves. And we don't know where it's going to go, but I know where I'm going to go right now.
To the bathroom? Oh.
No. I'm going to go to the gym. Got to work on my sick cum gutters, bro. Sick cum gutters.
Don't forget to wipe down the inflatable ball when you're done with it. Some people don't, and then it's just like, come on, dude. Like, now I'm supposed to get on that.
I know, and then the value of your cloth will significantly decline.
This has been a File 2 production.
Que rico.